Hello everyone. You may recognize my background. Yes, back at home base, Shtab in Ukrainian, in Odessa. There's a word in Ukrainian that you may not have heard. That word is zliva. Lots of water here in Odessa. Well, there's water usually. It is, after all, port city. But there have been apocalyptic floods here in recent days. I wasn't around, fortunately, but you can still see the remnants of it walking through parks, trees about to be toppled. But, you know, after almost 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, there are a couple of words that pop up, what I'm going to deal with in the video later on. One is resilience, but the other one is just the enterprising nature of Ukrainians, how quickly they clean up after a missile strike, a drone strike, and yes, indeed, after natural disasters. More rain today, which they certainly didn't need because the ground is already saturated, and more for forecast for the days to come. So let's see what happens. Those rains reached neighboring Moldova, where it's National Wine Day today and tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, and most of that is outside in Chisinau. So thinking of them, and well, cheers. I don't drink while I do these videos. Back after a whirlwind trip to North America, my first time into the United States since Trump 2.0. No problems getting in. I did, as a precaution, pre-clearance at Ottawa International Airport. It was a breeze. But very interesting. It's already, more than a week ago, but the first day I was there, we had a closed-door roundtable at Go's house, which, by the way, again, thank you to them. They're such cool people and such great facilities. But at that first roundtable, right off the bat, please, can we do Chatham House rules? Because we were talking about the war in Ukraine, we were talking about war criminality, we were talking about Sudan, we were talking about the West Bank and Gaza. No one wanted to end up on some list or whatever. So that carried on a little bit too through the sideline events of the UN General Assembly. And it is indicative of the new atmosphere in the United States, where there is a chill in the air, especially for those who are outspoken, who are critical of the Trump administration, of Mahak. So I was quite taken aback by that. But we learned a lot, and I think I've already shared with you some of what I picked up in the closed-door briefing. I can't say where it was or who said it, but the main points that came out of there were two, really. Mr. Trump it's believed, has wasted a lot of time charming Vladimir Putin of Russia, trying to see the war in Ukraine in a different way. The point made there by someone who knows him very well, who's worked with him for a long time, is that Mr. Putin is not persuadable, he's not malleable. Now, in the past week, a couple of really interesting things have been happening. Number one, and both reports come from the Wall Street Journal. The first is that the United States appears to be prepared to upgrade its intelligence sharing with Ukraine so that it can make deeper strikes into Russia. And most of those strikes have been targeting Russian energy infrastructure, especially petrochemical facilities, the very installations that help fund the Russian war machine. So this is really good news, not only for Ukraine, but for everybody, really, except for the Russians, I guess. The other one is that the US appears to be moving to providing quite a bit of sophisticated kit to Ukraine, including Tomahawk missiles, so that it can carry out these longer range strikes. Ukraine is also developing its own missile called the Flamingo, but we don't know in what quantities, the lethality of it, when it will be ready, but that is an interesting development amid everything else that is going on. All of this, of course, happening as Russia continues to destabilize the rest of Europe. The drones over Polish airspace, incursions into airspace in Estonia and elsewhere. And then these mysterious drones appearing especially over Denmark, which is the largest aid giver to Ukraine in terms of percent of its GDP. But also the most recent airport struck was Munich, where I believe it was, at least thousands of travelers were delayed or stranded, many flights canceled. So this is a big deal, and Europe is caught flat-footed, as it does often, because it doesn't have the technology or the strategy to take down these drones and to prevent them from coming in the first place. So very mysterious. Maybe it's even a case of Russia paying off people to launch these drones. We don't know, but I'm sure we'll get a pretty good indication soon. President Putin, in a very long speech in Yalta, 4 hours, I believe, was joking around about this, saying, okay, we're not going to do it anymore, without taking credit for it. Now, speaking of paying people off, also were the parliamentary elections in Moldova. The ruling PAS party, headed by Maia Sandu, the president, did extremely well. It got over 50%, so it has a majority. It doesn't have to do any parliamentary shenanigans by forming a coalition with opposition parties, especially the Russian-backed ones. But the interesting thing here is Russia threw everything it had at Moldova on this one. From, its usual kind of hybrid warfare stuff, of disinformation, destabilization, paying people off to vote, but also reportedly paying Moldovans, the boys from Transnistria, I believe, to go to another country for sort of training and fighting and destabilization, with the hope of coming back to Moldova and creating more problems for them. Well, it must have been an interesting conversation the day after the election in the Kremlin, when Mr. Putin called in his main henchmen for these sort of things to say, what the hell happened here? Why didn't we gain an upper hand in Moldova? And I think it also gives encouragement or strength to other countries that they can actually stand up to this bullshit that comes from Russia. Having said that, that's one of my favorite phrases I know, is we're looking at Georgia, where local elections are happening as we speak, and the opposition there doesn't want to really participate or recognize what is regarded as already unfair elections, so they're not really taking part, but protests are happening. But it's, I think all Moldovans have to do is two things to convince them to continue on this pro-European path. One, of course, is to go next door to Romania, and I think something like 30 or 35% of Moldovans have Romanian passports, so they already got a taste of what European democratic life is like. But also look at Georgia and the kind of salami-slice approach that is happening there, of this creeping authoritarianism, this creeping kind of chill that is happening, where rights and liberties are taken away. It's getting pretty bad over there. So that's that. But going back to Ukraine, over the past few days, including today, very heavy strikes, missile strikes, drone strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure. In the northeastern part of the country, heavily hit. The Naftogaz complex is there with a lot of missiles. This was one of the biggest strikes since the start of the war. And there have been other strikes as well. We don't know about all of them. But it does seem that Russia has this kind of coordinated strike package that is not only targeting critical infrastructure ahead of the winter. It's already getting chilly here, and of course darker earlier, but also using very interesting mix of missiles and drones in its strike package, different types of missiles, to evade Ukrainian air defense systems. This is according to research done by the Financial Times and others. But it's pretty scary stuff when you look at it and you see how they're employing this technology to even evade the very advanced US-supplied Patriot missile systems. Finally, one of the things that got me thinking in Ottawa, I presented at the Danilo annual seminar in Ottawa. In my case, I talked about the very sorry state of the Ukrainian media sector and what needs to be done to start propping it up. But the term resilience, and one speaker there brought up the fact that, from the start of the war, and this includes me, a lot of commentators have been talking about the incredible resilience of the Ukrainian people. No doubt about it. And I am in what I regard as the capital city of resilience of Ukraine, Odessa, world port Odessa, where people are very entrepreneurial, hardworking, creative, nonstop. A lot of movers and shakers have come from here.
These are defiant people. This is a city that Putin desperately wants to gain back and gain hold of. You filmed this wedding that took place just hours after this barrage of missiles struck the country. Talk about that and what the people there and the residents, how are they feeling in light of everything?
Sure, yeah. I was just outside my window here, and it was so heartening to see this ray of light in the darkness. But let there be no mistake. I mean, as much as the Ukrainians are concerned about what's happening, a lot of them are telling me that, we're not as anxious or scared as at the beginning of the war, that we will go on with our lives, as that wedding video shows. And, I've met restaurant owners here, business owners here who are saying we're going to go ahead with renovation plans, reopening plans, because there's no other choice for us. And I think it's this irrepressible resistance that is going to be another weapon thrown the Russians' way. And Bianna, just quickly, there's even talk here in Odessa between now and the end of the year of having a fashion/symphony orchestra show, not only to promote brand Ukraine, but also to show that defiance that life goes on. And the message there for those types of events will also be the West has to support Ukraine in many different ways, but also buying Ukrainian products, for instance, because a lot of their export markets are now closed off.
Those residents are leading by example. The Opera House continues to showcase performances as well. Life goes on, even weddings. Correct. That you captured in the midst of missiles coming down on these people.
You're beginning to see cracks, the nuances of living here that come up, that people are understandably getting weary, and there's no end in sight to the war. It's a very difficult position to be in, and there's a trickle of people. A former Ukrainian government official also spoke at that closed-door briefing in New York and said this trickle is actually very worrisome because there's not really a reverse flow happening. One of the points there is that probably a lot of men would come back, those who left early, but there's very little encouragement coming from the Ukrainian government or clarity on that if you come back, you will not be charged for perhaps leaving illegally. So that needs to be taken care of. The sooner the better. And I talked about the resilience again with cleanups and stuff like that, but I think we have to recalibrate in a way. We have to be a bit more careful when we talk about it because it may be counterproductive. This is the discussion we had in Ottawa, is that people will think, the Ukrainians are strong enough, they don't need our help. Yes, they need your help, and they need it a lot, and they need it now. Because one final point is that if Ukraine goes, so does Europe, the Europe that we know. I will want to thank you, of course, for your support, for your loyalty, for your promotion of World Briefing. It was my birthday on the 29th, and I feel so privileged to be in the position I sit, to be able to share my views, do analysis, and really highlight the stories that I think deserve highlighting. Thank you, дякую, merci beaucoup, muchas gracias, and I will see you in your exclusive video in a week. Bye-bye, and stay safe.